Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have more Jurassic World figures from Mattel, but it's the line that not everyone is a big fan of. We've got more pop-ups, and you can see we again have 4 different species entering the line now, and there's actually a wave of this that I missed entirely. The wave that came before this for some reason never shown up here. It just, like, I did not see anybody finding them. The only place I saw of, people getting them, I think, was the United Kingdom, and it was the wave that had the Spinosaurus and a different Atroceraptor, I think a pterosaur. So unfortunately, I'm going to still be on the hunt for that wave. I'll have to try to get a hold of it, not just to review for you guys, but so I can keep my line of pop-ups complete, even if they are not really that great. But you can see this time around, we've got a Tyrannosaurus Rex, a Velociraptor, a Stegosaurus, and a Stygimoloch, and only 2 figures here, I believe, are newly entering the line, as it would be the Stygimoloch and the Stegosaurus. We have had Raptors and TRex figures in the past in this line, but they look interesting, I guess, so let's jump to a closer look at all of them right now. So, the Velociraptor that we have this time around, of course, is going to end up being the same sculpt, I believe, as the previously released Velociraptors. We just have a new coloration for it, and it's an interesting one, that's for sure. We've got a really cool looking version of a blue, and I actually like the blue we have on the Raptor. I think it looks really neat. I like the fact that it's kind of a darker tone, so maybe a realistic sort of a variation of color. But there's not a whole lot going on as far as like patterning or designing or alternate color. You can see we do have this lighter tone here for the lower jaw that does run down through the course of the underside. We do not have painted nails on the figure, surprise, surprise. We've got kind of like a light sort of an orangish tone for the eye and a black slit-like pupil. And then the inside of the mouth has a pinkish tone, and then of course kind of like an off-white variation, maybe bordering on a yellow for the coloration of the teeth, and nice gloss coat in there as well. So that's alright, I guess. But then as you lead out here into the tail, you do have this very small section of a patterning going on, and it only picks up here at the end of the tail, and that's it. That's all we get as far as the coloration goes. So somehow on some of the most lackluster figures in the Mattel line, they found a way to make it even more lackluster. Definitely not a great figure, that is for sure, but still another one added to the pop-ups line. Then we've got the Stygimoloch, which the Stygimoloch is a new sculpt, so it is nice to see this figure entering the line. You can see you've got some pretty decent sculpt and detail on this one, some nice cracks and crevices within all the spikes up here on the top of the head for the Stygimoloch. There's also some nice fine detail within the beak, and I like the fact that we have kind of a glossy look for the beak. I think that helps the beak to really stand out, and definitely a really nice touch on the part of Mattel. I actually really like that. I wish they'd do that more often when it comes to dinosaurs that have beaks. You can see the nostrils sculpted out and everything, and we also have the mouth open on our Stygimoloch. You've got a nice pinkish tone yet again for the inside of the mouth, nicely sculpted teeth. You can see the teeth are actually sculpted there kind of individually, painted individually, so I think that looks nicer than what we saw on the Raptor. So that is definitely a plus. And there's also, again, on top of this variation of color we have for the primary body, you can see a speckling here. It's very obvious within the beak, so that's also nice. Up here in the dome skull area of our Stygimoloch, you can see a lighter tone has been applied. A little bit kind of inconsistent as far as the placement goes, because you can see that these spikes on the top of the head have been kind of hammered with that lighter tone, whereas over here they have not. So it looks like they just kind of missed the mark a little bit as far as the placement of that paint goes. As you lead into the back of the dinosaur, you can see a very dark variation of a brown picking up, running along the back of the dinosaur, kind of just designing briefly before disappearing. You continue to see that kind of speckling and stuff here and there. You can see it out there. As you lead down into the feet look pretty much like they always do. There is a little bit of a satin shine to the nails, similar to what we see on the beak, but no actual nail paint. And then we do have this lighter tone for the lower jaw that runs down here along the underside of the figure, as you usually find. You've got the arms sculpted in there, but they of course do not articulate, because that is a thing of the past from the actual snap squads, not the pop-ups. But you can see this one looks okay. I kind of like this one. Very stylized, as these figures always are. You've got a nice yellow eye, big black pupil, but very stylized as they always are, but a really cool species choice. Probably one of my favorite pop-ups, I think, so far. We've also got the T-Rex, and the T-Rex has an interesting paint scheme for it. You've got a nice brownish tone, again, for the primary body. You've got a little bit of orange running up here on the snout, but disappearing before it reaches the top of the head. You've got yellow eyes and a black pupil. You've got the mouth open. Again, big teeth, big bulky looking teeth. Nice naturalistic pinkish tone for the inside of the mouth as well. Again, a nice glossy addition in there. You can see it shining, giving it that nice saliva-like look. The teeth are painted similarly to the Velociraptor, again with an off-white bordering on a light yellow. And everything looks okay, as they always do when it comes to the T-Rex. It looks alright. You can see that there is definitely a speckling on this one, kind of like a lighter tone. That is a speckling addition to this one. But as you move back here into the back, you pick up some more of the orange again, briefly here running out onto the tail. And that's really all you're going to find, again, aside from the lighter tone of the lower jaw running along the underside, like you always see for these figures. You can see no nail paint yet again. So even the T-Rex doesn't get the nail paint when it comes to the pop-ups. But it's, again, all right for what it is. It's an okay figure, just not in general a big fan of the pop-ups. Definitely preferred the Snap Squad, so I'm hoping at some point we return to those or just come up with an entirely new gimmick figure for this type of release. But the T-Rex is, I guess, okay. Now here's the one I think I'm not going to like, because we have the Stegosaurus, and the Stegosaurus looks super awkward, and the biggest problem with the pop-ups is that you can't give them longer legs. So the quadrupedal dinosaurs look ridiculous, especially when you saw back to the Triceratops I had reviewed a little ways back. This one somehow looks even weirder. You almost don't even see front legs at all. They're just kind of blending into the body there, so they're not even obvious like the arms were on the T-Rex or the Raptor. Very, very ugly. So it absolutely looks like a bipedal version of a Stegosaurus. So straight away it looks very weird because of that. You can see we have a light, kind of like an off-white or a light grayish tone for the majority of the body. A strong speckling throughout. The fine detail does look really nice. Like if you look here in the face, you can see the scale detail does look pretty good. You've got a nicely painted beak with a darker variation of like a brown, sort of, almost looks like a gray, but kind of a brown at the same time. Also has a little bit of a satin shine, similar to what we saw in the Stygimoloch, and you can see a darker tone for the lower jaw, which is interesting because you normally see a lighter tone for the lower jaw, darker tone for the upper body, but we actually have it reversed on the Stegosaurus. You've got the teeth on the inside of the mouth, all sculpted nicely, painted nicely. It actually looks really good as far as that goes. Very nicely detailed tongue as well, with some nice texturing to it. And again, the light pinkish tone. You've got an orange eye with a black pupil. That as well has a bit of a shine to it, just like the mouth does, to kind of give it that wet look. And then when you lead up here to the plates, you can see there are two plates on the back of the head that did not get any paint. Then you lead into the back, and you do have some plates that have like this greenish color here as you move out. They as well include the speckling on them, and the actual sculpting and detailing of the plates does look really nice. And then you lead out to that very small tail with those tiny thagomizers, almost giving it a bit of a baby-like look, I would say. And that's really about it that you're going to find that's interesting on the Stegosaurus. Overall, again, the inclusion of these dinosaurs in the pop-ups has been a disaster, honestly, if you ask me. When it comes to any quadrupedal dinosaur, I just don't think it looks good. The Snap Squads, you had the ability to still have them on all fours, which still allowed them to look really cool, whereas with the pop-ups, they have to be on two legs, so it makes them look a lot more awkward and more like a weird hybrid rather than an actual Stegosaurus. So it is what it is. I guess there's not much you can do to kind of give it the action feature that they want when it comes to these type of figures, but still not a fan of any quadrupedal dinosaur in this line. So we definitely don't need to do sizes, comparisons, none of that stuff, because we should be very well aware of the size of these figures at this point. But I do want to see how they actually work, because I've been getting kind of like some faulty ones lately where they don't work good. So the Stegosaurus does kind of go to sleep. He looks more like he's just really tired rather than sleeping, because his eyes aren't entirely closed. And then we have to push them down. I always forget how to actually do this. And he pops up and wakes up. I guess it's kind of cute. The T-Rex, we'll see how that one works. Same thing pretty much. He just looks like he's super paranoid and he's trying to trick somebody behind him into thinking he's sleeping, but he's not doing a good job of it. And he pops up. He actually landed pretty nicely. The Stygimoloch, exactly the same case. He just looks behind him, kind of paranoid. I remember when these things actually worked nicely. And then the Velociraptor, the final one, pretty much the same thing. So they all pretty much do exactly the same thing nowadays. They don't really go to sleep like they used to. They kind of just like half go to sleep or half sort of look tired and then they just pop back up. So they're like trying to play dead almost, and then they kind of surprise whoever's nearby. So these pop-ups continued to be very, very iffy. I'm not a big fan of the pop-up line as a whole. I continue to collect them because I like to try to collect everything Mattel releases, and at this point, it took me quite a few like waves of this line of figures before I really realized how much I'm not a big fan of them. So at that point, I already had them. I might as well keep collecting them to try to keep the line complete. Again, I do still have that one wave I need to acquire, but this time around, we've got some okay species. We have a raptor, something we have had before. Pretty cool coloration to it, but just not a lot going on as far as the patterning goes. I do like the variation of blue they've used on it, but I just would have liked to have like maybe a little more patterning of some kind on the figure. Still an okay looking raptor. The T-Rex is probably the worst Rex we've had so far. Don't really like the tones of color chosen. I don't think the orange plays off of the brown as nicely as it could. And overall, the figure isn't that great as far as the sculpt goes to begin with. So the paint, not really adding much to it definitely does not help the figure. Pretty much just your standard generic random repaint of a figure we've already had. You also have the Stygimoloch. I think the Stygimoloch is pretty cool. Absolutely my favorite out of all of these here. I think he's probably one of my favorites from the pop-ups overall. Nice looking sculpt and detail for sure. Some okay paint, nothing to really write home about, but also probably some of the nicest paint that we have in this set of figures. So definitely a really cool one when it comes to the Stygimoloch. And then the Stegosaurus is like kind of 50-50 for me. I want to like it because I love Stegosaurus, and I remember loving the Snap Squad version of the Stegosaurus, but this one looks so weird, and the fact that, again, they have to have such short front legs makes it look more like a weird hybrid of a bipedal version of a Stegosaurus, more so than an actual Stegosaurus itself. And the sculpt and detailing looks okay. He looks super angry, probably the most angry looking Stegosaurus I've ever seen in my life. And he has some okay paint work to him. Nothing, again, to really write home about or go crazy about, but he looks okay at best. So as a whole, another wave of pop-ups have been released, and again, another wave of figures that aren't all that impressive. Kinda cool, but definitely not near as cool as the Snap Squads were. I do want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to Plush Boy Q, though, because he was the absolute man. Found these in his local area, and I had reached out to see if he could acquire me a set, and he said absolutely, grabbed them for me and sent them my way. And of course I paid him for that, but really cool of him to again continue to hook me up with some stuff that is definitely hard to find in my area. I haven't seen pop-ups in my area in forever, so it's definitely nice to have friends like that will help me out once in a while. So if you are interested, you can check your local Myers store, which I think is where he said he found his. So definitely check that store, see if you can encounter these, and pick them up if you are interested. Otherwise, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.